Let's see how much of the issues we can take on this morning with Tayo Uju, who is an aviation consultant, as well as MD Aglo Aviation Support Services. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let me ask you a simple question. Are we safe?
Yes, we're safe. And
for how long?
Safety and economic viability are two different things. We're safe, and for how long we'll be able to find out in the next few days. Because literally, with the cost of fuel, Jet A1 fuel as it is not sustainable for domestic flight carriers.
Well, that much has been referenced by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives. But the question then is, with all of the interventions and all going on, how helpful has that been and how sustainable?
There's no intervention. What has been, it's just been lots of talks about negotiations, because as at yesterday, they tried to fix the price at 500. The GMD said the landing cost is 480. So at some stations, it's going to be far more than 480. So you find out with landing and transportation logistics, it's averaging about 550 per litre, especially in Lagos. So with that, and if I give just this simple analogy, you have 70 passengers, which is on a good day, you fill your aircraft with 70 passengers at 50,000, that gives you 3.5 million. And if you have to buy fuel to go to Abuja, which is one of the most frequent routes, with a baseline of 10,000 litres at 550, that's 5.5 million. So you are already out by 2 million.
And that's not the only cost.
Yes, that's not the only cost. And don't forget, now the marketers are enforcing that they pay cash. The airlines pay cash before they actually service. So how long will the airlines be able to sustain this at this price? And that's why they're saying it's just 72 hours for this to be resolved. Else, literally, the domestic airline industry will shut down.
The question, a number of questions, really come here. On the one hand is scarcity. On the other hand is availability at all. Do we have them in stock? Because the last time we had a conversation with aviation fuel marketers, they said they didn't even have stock.
To the best of my knowledge, and actually that has been buttressed by the GMD, that says 19 marketers with 88 million metric tons of Jet A1 was available. So this does answer your question. 88 million metric tons is a lot. And this just started in the last few days. So we do have stock. What I think, in my opinion, is the flip side is, yes, we have the Russia-Ukraine crisis. By the time they finish this stock, they would actually have to go back to the market. So they're trying to actually make gains on what the stock are available, because don't forget, like you rightly said, there are other factors. The Forex is a big impact. By the time they go to the market to buy at the new stock, they might not be able to break even.
So the options are to either hoard, which has been said, or jack up the prices.
Which is what is both happening at this time.
Interesting. But as at today, I imagine, or as at the last time you checked, ever since that deal was brokered, saying that you should sell at 500 with the GMD and all of that, how much is it being sold now?
The deal wasn't brokered. It was just a meeting, and the honor system, it's still being, the domestic airlines are still subsidizing that operations. And you rightly heard the chairman of Airpeace saying it's going to be about 120,000 naira for a ticket, for a base fare. That's going to, because to answer your question, you've seen the price of about 550, which is that Lagos, ex-Lagos. By the time you get the transportation to Maiduguri, to Kano, you're looking back to about 600, 650, or about 700.
I'm still quite curious when you said the deal was not broken. Now, I'm reading from the NNPC's Twitter handle now. This was put out 2 days ago, March the 14th, saying the House and NNPC earlier today brokered an interim agreement between oil marketers and airline operators in a bid towards resolving the current aviation fuel situation in the country. And he talked about, having Moman, DAPMA, AON, and the rest. And there's a video actually attached where the GMB talked about, having to sell 500 naira for now and eventually get the operators to start importing the fuel. So to that extent, a deal was said to have been brokered.
Being brokered and implementation are two different things.
Right.
And where the rubber meets the road, as at yesterday's operations, it was not sold at 500 in Lagos per liter. So that's where it's in that room and where the handshakes were made, it was offered. But when you go to the market and they see that 500 is not realistic and it's based on the airline's negotiating power with the marketers, as well as being able to pay upfront, that's not a deal for the sustainability of the domestic airlines. Go ahead.
What are the options that are feasible? One of the suggestions by the airline operators is, look, give us license to import our own fuel. That's one option that someone has put on the table. Another one has said, and you talked about, the dollars. Some aviation fuel marketers want to import themselves so that there can be availability and market forces will determine the rest and all of that. So what are the options that are realistic for you?
What we've seen, because this is not actually new, we've seen this, aviation has been open to shocks. With the Iraq War, lots of wars that happened in the past, even the SARS. What we've seen is what the airlines do, and has worked, is you hedge your funds, you hedge your oil over the year. So what the hedge process is you know what your uptake and your locations is for the year. And you actually meet your preferred marketers and say, okay, I'm guaranteeing you X number of liters for X number of naira. And you pay that and you fix that for X number of months. So that would actually guarantee your cost and show that the fluctuation is actually not affecting your cost. Because you have to understand that 40% of our operations in aviation is oil-based, the fuel. So what we need to have done is hedge this. Now, going to that part of the airlines are important. I'm not giving to that because you find out that Delta Airlines, with about 680 fleet equipment in 2012, actually bought a refinery. It went belly up because it's not their area of primary business. It's not their core business. So what they have to do is actually partner with refineries or those that are in that business, and they'll be able to provide the fuel and hedge the fuel so that they have guaranteed fuel for their operations.
Now, is that what happened with the international airlines? Because we understand that they don't have this. You kept talking about domestic airlines. Does that also happen to international airlines?
They hedge. And it's a normal practice within aviation, within the airline business. Once you're doing your balance, your budget for the year, you actually hedge and say, okay, you know your routes, you know your frequency for the year, you know your aircraft uptake, you know what the weather might happen. So based on that, plus or minus 10%, you actually hedge your fuel and say, well, marketer ABC, I'm going to, because you can't just stick with one marketer, just ABC, I'll get X number of liters from you for a year at this price. That's actually, you're fronting that marketer, and that actually is good in the marketer's books and actually helps the marketers set up being able to serve you.
With this price fluctuation, is it equally helpful?
It's helpful, but it's a risk as well. It's a risk, the marketers, and it's a risk, and it's algorithms as well. Right. They've done it over the years, so it's not new. You're not reinventing the wheels.
But that doesn't happen with domestic airlines.
Because we don't have the fleet. The biggest domestic airline does not have 50 aircrafts here.
In fact, what's been said to happen now, I recall some of the marketers saying they're being owed millions. I think at some point above 100 million, in fact, for a certain, operator. I recall, in that report, the FCCPC taking the flak for trying to regulate the price. And I know for a lot of operators, it feels good because they're thinking it's a business. Why would you try to cap the price? But don't forget, there are also Nigerians who have to fly. And you know how flying by air is in Nigeria. It's not entirely a luxury. Or is it a luxury? How do you even express that? It's an elitist thing, as some people say, essentially. So if you were to now increase this by, 120,000 naira. Yes, you want to meet your operating costs, but would you be able to get people on board that airplane to fly in the first place? So really, would you blame the FCCPC for trying to do its job for the consumers? How about the airlines focus on its own regulators and the people that have the power to broker this deal and ensure it's implemented so that you can have it done right by you as an operator and then done right by the people as consumers. I hope that makes sense.
It does, but don't forget the baseline is airline industry in Nigeria has been deregulated. With deregulation comes, see the demand and supply. That's what drives it, essentially. And that's why you see that you have 3 triangular routes, which is Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. And now, with the new evolution of new airlines, you're actually opening up the secondary routes on secondary airports. With that said, you find out the 120 is just a baseline or a mentioned figure. You find out already we're actually having a negative impact with the reduction in passenger traffic. We've seen that in the last few weeks. Now what's going to happen with the shock now, we're going to see further reduction. And unfortunately, we'll see some airlines go under, which is literally what they're saying about them collapsing. So what we need to now do is find out the economic viability of these airlines and say what would actually be the actual cost of operations. One thing that is sure and has been prevalent prior to this time is the fact that we've actually had lots of underlying financial and operational issues prior to the Ukraine and Russia war.
That's coming off COVID and all of that.
Exactly. COVID, we had 2 years of COVID. We are the first to be impacted. We just imagine of it. Supply chain issues are there. We're just getting out of that. Over and beyond that, in Nigeria, with airline, actually, we have 70% of our operations that are dollarized. Access to Forex is a big issue. We have a lot of domestic airlines that are putting for Forex requests and have not been fulfilled over 2 years. Spares are outside. You actually talk about delays. You actually talk about being able to go send your the pilots and their crew for training. It's all dollarized. We don't have an MRO here.
So is that why, pardon me, there was this talked about coming together of the operators to fix a price, even though it's said that it's against, you know, the regulations having, I mean, uniform price. I recall we've had that conversation. So is that the thinking, saying, you know what, we're in this together. How about we just come together and rescue this, which is against the regulations? But, you know, desperate times, they say, calls for desperate measures. So is that the thinking behind this as well?
I don't think your side is what is the right side. I don't think...
Yeah, it's not my side. It's the talked about side. I recall we had someone speak about this right there.
Well, the perception is, yes, to fix price. But the Spring Alliance by 6 domestic airlines, it's not to fix price. It's just, there's strength in numbers. There's economics of scale. We're wearing these shoes together. Let's see how we can actually form an alliance to actually ensure that we address issues that of mutual interest, so that we actually be able to grow the Nigerian aviation sector. Because don't forget, aviation is a great economic catalyst to Nigeria. It's actually contributed to about 0.04% to Nigeria's GDP, and is over in higher to about 0.6%. Okay. And over and beyond that, we have about 104,000 people employed with directly, indirectly, and catalytic to Nigeria's economy. So we are driving the economy from the passenger and the cargo side. So what needs to be done is to ensure that the aviation sector thrives.
Finally, what do you see happening with all of these conversations going on, especially concerning fuel scarcity for the aviation sector? The House of Representatives is talking with those in the executive and the consumer side and regulator side and all of that. So what handshake do you think would help quickly resolve the issue?
I think not working in silos would help, because it's being able to understand what is the ease of doing business in Nigeria. Let's see what the roadmap is, because you mentioned about 3 different entities now. It's been able to see working together as Nigerians and see how this is going to affect the traveling public, the government. Don't forget, lots of government or companies already have a fixed travel budget. If it goes over and beyond that, it's going to affect their budget.
All right.
It's going to affect lots of bottom line. So what needs to be done is for everybody to work together and see how are we going to actually ensure what is the best price for the marketer, landing, and transparency.
Okay.
Being able to ensure that transparent, what is the landing cost, what is the most affordable cost to the domestic airline operator, and then we'll be able to share this information and see how we can operate viably in a seamless and commercially viable manner.
Most certainly, this is just one segment of the conversation, and we know that a number of others will happen in the coming days. But for now, we have to thank you very much.
It's always my
being
pleasure.
Part of our program this morning. Tayo Ojure is aviation consultant and MD, Aglow Aviation Support Services. Thank you again for your time.
My pleasure.